Before heading to the video, if you haven't subscribed the channel, do subscribe it and don't forget to click the bell icon for the latest update notification. If you like the video, do like, comment and share. Stay tuned with learnbay.co. Happy learning!
I think actually we have to kind of stop and look into something called pre-processing. Now we will talk about a basic idea of pipeline first. Okay. Now almost all of the things that I'm going to teach here are available in scikit-learn, so you don't really have to go anywhere else to do anything. Everything is available in scikit-learn, but we need to understand the rationale behind how to use it. Okay guys, so first the diagram that you are actually seeing is a not pre-processing, sorry, it is about a pipeline scenario, or is it is like a data science project development scenario. Okay. The very first thing is requirement gathering or business problem understanding. Unless you do not understand your business problem or what kind of metrics you want to improve, nothing is gonna really change. Now after that you do data wrangling. Basically you try to get the data, you try to assemble all the data at one position, and maybe you just try to fill out the missing values or try to delete some irrelevant or corrupted points. Okay. Then you do data visualization. So maybe through Tableau or maybe through Matplotlib as well, you could visualize your data. So you might have done this some basic box plot stuff already in maybe through Titanic dataset or something.
Yeah.
Okay. So our task so far basically, so we directly started here. We started here like right now. We started training model, but the problem is model training or the efficiency of model training actually depends on something called data preprocessing. Now, what is data preprocessing? Means a couple of steps like data outlier removal I have already explained, but now we will try to combine all these ideas one by one. So to handle or give it to the model, first we need to process or pre-process the data, because the data might not be in the correct format. As you just saw in the decision tree example itself, I had to convert the categorical into numbers. But again, the rationale has to be understand why or how you did that. Okay. Okay. So let's go through the idea of pre-processing first and then see how to go forward with this idea. Now, ideally, we will require, and maybe I can run all of them first. Again, we will be using NumPy pandas, maybe Seaborn as well, and Matplotlib to plot these things. Okay. Now, different learning algorithms have affinity towards certain pattern of data. Okay, and unscaled or unstandardized data might be very handle or unacceptable for some estimators. So whenever I'm writing some estimator, it means some machine learning algorithm. Okay. Transformers are different pre-processing steps or functions that we will be building throughout the pipeline or throughout the process. So many times we have to apply different transformation in a sequence. It is not just one transformation. Maybe you have to apply different kind of transformation. Okay. So what kind of what kind of things we have already done in Python or in just in stats? What did we already learn? Okay, what steps you have already taken to make data usable? Let's ask this question first.
Null removal, then filling with average.
First of all, finding null values, then either taking them to median or something to fill those values. One is this. Second, there could be some columns that are of no use and not adding value. Identifying them and then removing them. Then the third is, if there are 2 or 3 columns having same correlation, we can eliminate them.
Okay, good.
Something like this.
So some steps you have already taken, and we will see some more steps in order to understand how we connect all this information. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
The very first problem, okay, so that's a good way to start. Okay, the very first problem that we run into is the problem of scaling. How many people understand the problem of scaling already?
Scaling, we can say that if let's say you are looking at 2 or 3 columns, and one column is of Indian rupees and the second column is a dollar.
Good example.
So that is scaling actually.
Maybe that could be, or maybe it is a simpler matter of scales. Okay, there are two different scales. Okay, here the increase happens like from 55, the value increases to 58. Here the value increases from 5 to 6. So could you tell me which value, where is the where there happened where there is more increase? Could you tell me that?
We need to come up with percentage or something.
Yeah.
One way
Why we need to come up with percentage?
to have a common values in both the thing.
Not common value. You need to bring them to the same scale, because
Scale,
if you
yes, scale.
in absolute values, the upper one is definitely more. Upper one increases of 3 points, the lower values of only 1 point. But we understand in terms of percentage, the lower increase is actually of 10%. The upper increase is only barely 3%.
Right.
Now this affects the algorithms or any kind of scaling algorithm. So imagine if you were to draw a line, but like y goes from 0 to 100 and x only moves from here to here. And if you were not to scale the data, your algorithm, your learning algorithm might not work very well, because you are using different scales, right? As you just gave the good example of rupees versus dollars. So again, rupees and dollars. So 74 rupees for now is $1, let's say. Now this is the biggest problem, right? You might want to assess something in rupees or dollars, but if they are not brought to the same scale, the changes you will not be able to track. And this is not just this, there are different ways of normalizing the data in statistics as well. Like you might have heard of something called PPE. No, triple P, sorry, not PPE, sorry, my bad. Triple P. What is triple P? Anyone knows?
Private public partnership.
Okay, good one. Anything else? People living in USA will know or understand this point very well. Means they might have compared their lifestyles at some point.
Oh yeah, purchase price parity. All right.
Yes, purchasing. Yeah, you can say purchasing power parity.
Oh.
Anyone knows what this is? So there is a very easy thing, like people, at least whoever is planning to go outside, or they have to do this. Okay, so let's say someone thinks like, okay, in USA I will make $6,000 per month. If you are already a working professional, and even in India if you are making decent money, a person has to do this calculation, otherwise it's a very tricky thing. Okay, and in India, let's say you are a senior professional and you are making 1.25 lakhs, of course, rupees per month. Now leave aside the emotional factors. Okay, just go on the numerical mathematical basis. Let's say if you were to live in a metropolitan city in USA, and as well you are living in metropolitan city in India as well, how would you compare these two salaries?
Depending on the cost of living in both the cities.
Exactly. Okay, so you will have to take, because you cannot do a direct conversion, because in USA, I can just tell you with my experience that, okay, so a loaf of bread, let's say how much will cost in India right now? Just giving you a simple example, just to make
30 rupees, let's say.
35 rupees. Okay, just keep it 35. It will be easier for our mathematics. In USA, it is very average to find for 199. That is $2 for right now. I think $2 is what's 150 rupees maybe, or 145 rupees. Okay, so you cannot go 1 to 74 directly. First, you need to understand how much is the purchasing power parity. So think about it. So if I were to take 1:5 as a purchasing power parity, what it means is, on an average, you in USA, same thing will cost you 5 times more in absolute numbers. If you were to convert everything either to dollars or you convert back everything to rupees only. Okay. So let's say if everything is 1:5. So if in USA, I was living for a $1,200 place, let's say I was paying $1,200 in rent. How much is $1,200 right now? Let's say 88,000. I'm not 100% sure. Okay. 88,000. So in Bangalore, if I have to live, so how much I should be paying to maintain the similar lifestyle, or and to adjust against triple P as well?
17,600.
Sorry, how much?
17,600.
17,600. Okay. So maybe it is not 1/5, maybe it could be 1/4. I'm just making an estimate. So if you were to take actually 1/4, then you will come as 22,000 rupees.
Yeah, 22,000.
If you can find, although Bangalore is also costly in some places, but if the idea is if you were living in a 2 BHK individual home over there, so in Bangalore, if you are thinking and if you are making a similar amount of money, again adjusted against triple P, then ideally you should be spending somewhere 23,000 rupees in a rent for a 2 BHK or a 2 BHK individual house, something like that. Okay. If you are spending more, then living in Bangalore is becoming more costlier than USA. Okay. For various reasons. But then for food and stuff, the order of magnitude is like really very different. But still 1/4, you can think, at least in a metropolitan city, that it is very easily 1/4 in most of the scenarios. You can simply think in absolute terms, in USA, it will cost you 4 times more immediately if you want to do that math. Okay. So basically, idea is you will have to normalize the data, or you will have to bring the data into same scale. Otherwise, comparisons are very hard to make. Okay. So maybe in your per month salary in USA will be in $1,000. Here it will be in lakhs. So if you were to try to compare, it is like by factor of 10, it is more, right? On an average. Not factor of 10, maybe factor of 5 or factor of 4, but the machine doesn't understand this part. That is the biggest issue. So you have to bring everything to the same scale. Maybe -1 to 1. Maybe 0 to 1 itself. Okay. So how do you scale up the data? And this kind of scenario is scaling or normalizing of data is required, especially where there is a distance or parametric estimation. Means wherever you have parameters, ideally you do want them normalized. So linear regression, logistic regression, you do want them normalized. Not a very big criteria in Dysentery or random forest, but again, even if you go for SVM, which is again based on distance parameter, we do require normalized data itself, or normalized or scaled up data. Okay. So how you do the scaling? So the very first thing that we have to learn is something called scaling. Okay. So let's go one by one. The first scalar is called standard scalar. Okay. Now the standard scalar actually assumes your data is normally distributed within each feature and will scale them such that the distribution is now centered around 0. Now the scaling is happening column by column. Okay, remember this part, because someone might ask like, where did you get the mean and standard deviation? It is column by column. Okay, so calculate, subtract mean of column and division by standard deviation. So can anyone tell me like, but remember, if data is not normally distributed, this is not the scalar you will go for. There lies in the fundamental assumption, as I was telling you long back while we were covering CLT, that lot of algorithms actually just make this assumption, even if it might not be true for your data. So if data is not normally distributed, this is not the best scalar to use, but still, okay, can you tell me what would be the range of the outcomes here? You can look at the equation xi minus mean of x divided by standard deviation of x. Anyone? What would be the range of outcomes, if I may ask? I think Sweta has got the right answer. Anyone else? What does this reminds you of? Like, can anyone not see this? If it is Gaussian, what is this equation equivalent to?
The number of standard deviations that observation is away from mean.
No, that is okay, but I'm just simply asking what would be the range here? Like,
The range would be could be minus infinity to plus infinity.
yes, it is Z distribution. Can anyone see this clearly or not? The idea is it is basically Z score, not distribution. Sorry, it's basically Z score if you can see it very clearly. If the assumption it is Gaussian, then taking any x value, subtracting it by mean and dividing by standard deviation will give you Z score. Agree? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. And Z score values go from where to where? Come on, give it a try. No, not zero, negative infinity till positive infinity.
Yes, in that card, both ways, minus infinity.
Yeah,
to-
so you have to remember again, I told you, like you cannot forget stats while reading machine learning. That is the basis of doing a lot of these things. Okay, fine. But the reasonable assumption you can say on an average 95% points will be from -2 to +2, -3 between -3 to +3. How many percent of points will be there?
99.7.
Very good. So most of the points I can confidently say that they will be from -3 to +3. Make sense now? So again, the values can take from negative infinity till positive infinity, but almost 99.7% values will be from -3 to +3 itself. So now I hope you can see the scaling factor that it will be basically scaled between -3 to +3. Most of the cases will be between those examples itself. If you remember, we even have done outlier removal based on this. You have already done this. So remember that factor, that how did we do that?
Based on confidence intervals, saying you look anything below
No,
this.
not just confidence intervals. Like you did outlier removal, remember? I gave you assignment kind of stuff.
Mhm.
I did through Z-score, remember?
Yeah.
Yes. And another was using the IQR value.
Yeah. So Z-score also is flawed. If you have too many outliers, then Z-score might not also work. But
Yes.
given that data is symmetrical and normally distributed, Z-score is a decent idea. That basically from -3 to +3, basically the threshold was 3, and we took like absolute Z-score. So absolute is even if your Z-score is negative, it is converted to a positive value. So anything beyond 3 is basically cut off. Remember that part.
Yes.
So basically, just telling you that the things are basically here connected here. You should not think them as separate things. This is just a connected idea that let's scale all the data column by column. So it is done feature by feature. And they are bought. Now, of course, it can only happen for numerical data. It cannot happen for categorical data yet. So for numerical data, you will scale them and let's say 99.7% values will be from -3 to +3. Agreed?
Yeah.
Okay. So just showing you simple example, taking couple of random. So first, let's see their plots, how they are looking like. So these are the values, x1, x2, x3. These are 3 features. Everyone can see that. Now, if I were to just simply plot the data, now you will see they are in different level of ranges. Can you see that factor?
Yes.
So I need to bring all the features x1, x2, x3 in the same range. So what do I do? Now there is a complete package of called pre-processing, and we will mostly use this package today itself. sklearn.preprocessing import standard scaler. Now we will make standard scalar here and then do something called fit transform. Now in pre-processing, there is something called fit transform. What it means is, because this is just not training, it is like transforming the data. It is about the conversion. So the function that we use is called fit transform. And you pass your data structure. It could be a pandas data frame. It could be list. It could be numpy arrays, scipy sparse arrays. You pass all the information. You provide which column you want to do it for. And this is what the data outcome comes now. Okay. After the scaling, this is how your data looks like. Again, try to remember almost 99.7% values or close enough to 100% values will be from -3 to 3, positive 3. 95% values will be from -2 to 2. So you can take a reasonable assumption that any random point will be between -2 to 2. And how the curves will look like now? Is it clear?
Yes, all three are in same scale.
Same scale, they basically have become Z distributions if you think about it. Any doubt with standard scalar? Good. Again, the fundamental assumption is data is Gaussian or normal distributed. If it's not, you cannot actually use standard scalar. So standard scalar is not something that we actually use regularly, to be very honest. If you have a problem of outliers or something, then also it is not working very well. Okay, so the other simple scalar is called min-max scalar. It's the most popular scalar. Very simple operation if you think about it. So xi minus min of x, whatever your range of the data is, whatever the minimum value is, you subtract by it. And the range is nothing but max minus min. Okay, so usually if the data is not suitable for standard scalar, this system works out very well. The data will be from 0 to 1. Okay, why?
Because when x is max, it becomes 1, and then anyway it is.
Yeah, just put x values. So the lowest value is what? Min of x, or basically you can think this is x min minus min of x is 0. The maximum value is max of x minus min of x divided by max of x minus min of x is
1.
1. Very good. Now the only problem which will happen is it is sensitive to outliers. Okay, and I will explain you what is the problem here. Okay, so first let me show you the basic plot here. Again, I can take different kind of distribution like chi-square, beta, normal distributions. I can plot them and you can see them, all of them actually are in very different ranges altogether. So if I were to plot this, this is how all three graphs are looking like. See, completely different location, different shapes, so different ranges altogether. Now, if you were to apply min-max transform or min-max scalar, okay, and you were to transform them, all of them using fit transform, this is how they will start to look like. Their shape is still different. We are not saying that we will make their shape similar, but I guess you can see most values or almost all the values are between 0 to 1. Understood what is happening here?
Yes, so just can you just go up slightly?
Sure, no problem.
2 rows up, just 2 rows up, not much. So min df, so you got df, and then we said, so when we are passing it to the fit transform, we are not saying which columns we want that to be applied. It is applied to all.
Now, if you do not provide, okay, so basically if you do not provide, it will go do it for all the columns in that data frame. You can choose. I'm not saying you can't.
No, I was just asking because. Yeah. Okay. Right.
So if I have provided simply the data frame, if I have not bothered to provide individual columns, it will do it for all the columns.
Hmm.
Like in the previous example, one sec. Here as well, you can see if we do not choose the columns, it will do it for all the columns immediately.
Okay, so one question is that do we combine these? So what I'm saying is, let's say I have got an employee database in which I've got salary, age, and all. Age might not be following a normal distribution, but salary might be. So then,
Yeah. No, so again, as you can see, this is why I'm showing you the data frame in all the cases. You can imagine one as age, salary, and maybe as a performance score, right?
Mhm.
Okay, this could be the experience, this could be salary, this could be performance score, the third one. They all are following different kind of distribution. They might not all be the same kind of distribution, okay? But using min-max scalar, what did we achieve?
Yeah, got that. We brought it down to the same scale. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so again, how does min-max scalar works?
It evens out the data spread based on the min and max values. So it basically puts them on that scale.
Yeah, so basically they bring them into a scale of 0 to 1. Remember, they do not change the shape of the data. Shape of the data remains all it is. Okay. Now there the only problem is sensitive to outliers. What is the outlier problem here? So actually, with one time in one data set, actually I was doing this just to kind of experiment. So you remember that experiment where we took like our own polynomial scenario, polynomial regression and linear regression. So if my 0 to 100 is my input and my y mapping function is x to the power 10, okay, plus some noise. And to do the regression successfully, I basically use a min-max scalar. Can you tell me what will happen here?
The range itself will be much higher, like min minus max value will be much higher.
So what will happen really? Range is bigger, I agree with that. So any kind of outlier will basically make it much, the range will become bigger. But what is the problem in that it will cause really?
Our hypothesis will be wrong because it will amplify it 10 to the power 10 times. So that is not, outlier is not representation of the data and pattern. So
Exactly. So where is this outlier coming from?
Where it is coming from, that is coming because of the min max scale. So
Not miss, okay, fine. Not exactly. So see because you are going with x to the power 10 scale, right?
yeah.
Your data is from 0 to 100. You have any idea how this data is going to move like?
It's going to start very small and then go very y will go increase very fast.
Okay, so you have any idea how much is the difference between 99 and 100? Even on x-axis, the difference is only of 1. You have any idea how much is the difference between their outcomes? So 1 to 100 or 0 to 100 is normal axis, okay? But what about y? If there are, let's say, two columns, okay? One is y, one is x. And y is nothing, but it is simply x to the power 10. Okay, agree? So you could scale x between 0 to 1 or something. It is already between 0 to 100. Can you see the problem with y? What will happen right now if I were to scale it up properly? If using min-max scalar only? Okay, let's see if I can jog up your memory a bit.
Based on min max scaling, then you are suppressing the actual values because min and max are going to take overshadow.
Yeah, basically you are getting the intuition right, but let me just be very clear. Between 0 to 1, let me show you the value distribution, how it is going to work like now. because as someone rightly said, the range is really going to be large. So the initial values, or forget the initial values. All the smaller values will almost, because it is going to be kind of a logarithmic scale after a while, if you understand this. Let's say the difference, let's say if 100 is here, or yeah, 100's example is here. Do you understand how log scale works? So between 0 to 1, where would be the 99's outcome? Actually, human beings actually cannot think very anything which goes beyond power of 1 or which is less than power of 1. Actually, humans have really hard time understanding that. So if this is the outcome of 100, okay, let me just write it out. This is 100 to the power 10. And if scaled properly, this is, because this would be the maximum value, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell me where would be this 99 itself, which is, let's say, in numeric terms, it is really near to 100, right? 99 and 100. But their outcome, you have any idea how much different their outcomes are going to look like right now?
Very big.
Very big, you are right. If I remember my log scale properly right now, the difference between 99 to the power 10 and 10 to the power 10 would be, okay, just on an approximation basis, this is 99. This is basically 99 to the power 10 and scaled properly. See the problem?
Yeah. We are kind of suppressing the data in the whole range of 0 to 1 also. Basically in the
0 to
left.
100 is, but it is not, okay. So 0 to 100, again, compare the other row. 0 to 100 is a perfect one. If this, okay, so this was Y, okay. If, what about X?
X will be correctly scaled
X
in
will
linear
be
way.
equally spaced. Yeah, you are right. X will be actually equispaced. So if there was 99, 100 would be just after that. Make sense? This is less than 99 and this point is 100. All of them will be equispaced, but that's not how the power game works. So outliers can actually destroy the min-max scalar. So what is the option here? How do I solve the problem now?
We can remove the outliers first, then apply min-max scalar.
Let's say I have to keep all that. I mean, of course you can do that. I'm not saying that. But let's say if I have to keep all the data, then I just want to scale. I don't want to delete anything right now.
Then might be you will fix some max value, and beyond that max value, everything is 1.
Exactly. Very good. How do I fix this max value? Okay, in statistics, what is the answer to an outlier? It's a very simple thing. Again, if you remember stats, it is very easy answer.
Median.
If it
Yeah,
is
median
beyond,
and IQR, that's all. If you want a fixed range, what you do in life? You go with this IQR.
IQR.
What is IQR really?
interquartile range, that is
In this case, the positive one will really go very far. Okay, maybe the negative one is immediately. So IQR value is?
Q3 minus Q1.
Very good. So if you run into an outlier scenario, and let's say if you do not want to delete the outliers and outliers, we just want to scale them, then what do we do here is, let me show you. We do X minus Q1 divided by Q3 minus Q1, which is just the IQR range. Okay, and you can take, so we have put some random, so you can see there are few outliers here in both scenarios. We have manually created an outlier in the extremities of this. Okay, and they are in different scales right now. So we run robust scalar. So whenever you have large amount of data, and the most of the data will be again concentrated between -2 or -3, from -3 to +3. Okay, most of the data will be brought down to the same scale. Understand what is a robust scalar?
so can you go back to the formula? Robust scalar.
Sure. So it is x minus q1 divided by IQR.
So the scalar is intelligent enough to then identify everything outside Q3 and Q1 and make them one.
Yeah, basically, yeah. It will basically anything between IQR will be less than between -1 to 1. Okay.
Yeah, but outside.
-1, sorry, my bad. Extremely my bad. Anything between this IQR range will be basically between 0 to 1.
Yeah.
Again, take a box and whisker plot. Otherwise, it is hard to understand. I can relate to that.
I got that. It will be 0 to 1.
Q1, you can understand now. Q1 starts from 0.
Yeah.
Anything in IQR is between 0 to 1. Okay. Any whisker which is lower than Q1 will go negative. And let's say if there are too many values in positive whisker, those will be beyond 1. But at least middle 50% of data will be brought to 0 to 1. Agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Only thing I was asking was the outliers, then it is intelligent enough in terms of coding is done that it all makes it one.
Exactly. You're right. So if anyone asks you what is the scaling factor, remember the middle 50% is between 0 to 1. Again, the negatives will go in negatives, positive will go in further positive. Any outlier will still look like an outlier, but at least you have got the middle 50% between 0 to 1.
But doesn't that kill some data? As in, we might be saying Q1 and Q3.
No, still the outlier values will still look large.
That I agree. Where I'm coming from is Q1 and Q3 and Q1 still is only 50%, am I right? So there is still 50% data outside.
Yeah. No, again, understand. No data is getting killed. Okay, please try.
When I say killed means it's actual impact to the thing need not have been one. When I say kill, I don't mean the row goes away, but
basically what I'm trying to say here is, okay, so whatever the data here is, if the outlier is there, it will be there. See, if the outlier is here, present here, even when I scaled it back, or sorry, scaled it down, outlier is still there. It's just that it has been brought to a scale. What I'm trying to say is maybe the middle 50% or something will be between 0 to 1. Okay. We are just concerned about that data right now, nothing else.
Yeah. Got it. Basically, 50% is what is deciding about pattern. As in, balance is just one.
Exactly. If there is a outlier scenario, okay, you can actually calculate this. This is not really hard. But again, we will have to give you a basic IQR and stuff. But the simple idea, I'm saying if there actually exists an outlier, that still will be there in the data. That is not going to go anywhere. Okay. The only thing it is going to do is, it is going to, even in that scale, it will look like that. That the middle 50% values will look like they are between 0 to 1. Any very extreme positive outlier will become maybe less than 9. Earlier in min-max scaler, what we were doing, you were punching everything between 0 to 1. So again, if the 100 to the power 10 will be here, then 99 to the power 10 is here. And all the values are just clustered here. See how hard it will be to do any kind of classification and regression. It will just not work at all. Here, only the middle 50% is being put in this range. Anything outlier is still shown as outlier.
Okay. I think I was holding it wrong. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So it does not get converted to one fully. It is basically
the middle 50%. Just again trying to really drive this point home. Only Q3 to Q1 to Q3 is only converted to. Again, you can look in the equation. So again, what is the lowest value between Q3 to Q1? What are the values it can take? If it becomes Q1, X1 is Q1, then what is the outcome? This Xi is Q1, then what is the outcome? 0. If it is X3, then what is the outcome?
It's Q3.
It's infinite.
Yeah, it's 1 basically. So I'm just simply saying that this box and whisker plot, if you were to look very carefully, this will become 0, this will become 1, but this is again just middle 50%. You remember this. Now there is no upper limit where the upper whisker can go and where this lower whisker will go. But again, because it is divided by IQR range, it will be proportionally cut down. But remember, if it is an outlier, it is still an outlier. We have not done any outlier removal. We have just scaled the values. But if it is an outlier, it is still an outlier.
The reason why I was asking was because I got it wrong initially. I was thinking that outliers will all become 1. It's not the case. It will have the value of 9 or 8 depending upon whatever it is.
Exactly. So robust scalar is utilized wherever you have outlier problem. Okay.
So we are not scaling the outliers. We are just scaling middle 50%.
No. Again, come on. Even if there is an outlier here, that is getting scaled by this much factor, right? Look, okay, what was happening in min-max scalar? Think about it. You had a range which was getting affected by outliers. Why?
The change was very high. Like
Why it was happening?
Because for the change of X value, the change of Y value was very high.
No. Much simpler. What are outliers really?
Which are like beyond 3 sigma.
No. In the most purest sense, what is an outlier? Either it is a new maximum or it is a new minimum. Understand that? If the data is arranged, what is an outlier really?
It is beyond that maximum and minimum.
No. It is a new maximum. Understand?
Okay. Huh. Yes.
So what it does, it expands the range unrealistically. Look, earlier, let's say between 0 to 100, your division is by how much? Max minus min is how much?
100 minus 0, 100. Yes.
100. You should not think too much here, okay? But now think about that y, which is x to the power 10, okay? Now think very carefully. What is the lowest value possible over there? Come on, guys, like you cannot take this time. 0, of course, that is the min value, right? So maybe in the lower side, there is no expansion. What is the maximum value? Does anyone tell me right now?
X to the power 100 to the power 10.
10 to the power 10. Oh, 100 to the power 10. You're right. Sorry, my bad. So basically, you have to keep putting 2 zeros 10 times. Okay. So you can understand how big this number is. Now you see what just happened to the range.
Yes. It will be dividing by a very big number.
Yes, exactly. So basically your information just became x minus 0, 100 to the power 10 minus 0. You understand how big this range is. So any value which is close to 0 or even close to 99 is gonna get blown to shreds basically.
Yes.
Even just think, put 99 here. Okay, just put 99 here and see the problem. Even if you put, 99 to the power 10. Okay, you have any idea how much difference these values are? At power of 10, there is a massive difference between these two values. 99 by 100 might look like very close to each other. Believe me, 99 to the power 10 divided by 100 to the power 10 is a massive difference. So what is happening is between 0 to 1, all the values are practically here. Maybe 99 is also here itself. And this is directly then 100 to the power 10. This is definitely not a fair distribution that we were looking for. But in interquartile range, IQR doesn't change. I hope you remember that. So basically this fixes up the range altogether. In max scalar, because outliers are just gonna be either a bigger negative or larger negative or a larger positive number. That is gonna increase the range and that is gonna destroy the overall linearity or anything that you had with data. That is totally gone. So it is almost very incomprehensible to work with this kind of data.
Okay, here we are just dividing with that IQR range. So the dividing factor is IQR range, not like that huge range which we was facing earlier.
Exactly, because IQR range is gonna be mostly fixed. That is not gonna really change.
Yes.
Understood? Why? Again, this is why I'm saying we are not killing any outlier. Outlier will still remain outlier and it will be divided by a factor of IQR value, whatever the IQR range is.
Yes.
Okay. So that is what robust scalar is.
So basically what you're doing is you're scaling down the effect on y by that much. If it is y to the power 10, so you are scaling it down by that much.
Yeah, exactly.
Scaling it down by IQR.
Yes, exactly.
By the difference of Q. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, guys. So I have to stop and